Hi everyone and welcome to Veterans in Crisis podcast. Today we have Dr Yitka Graham, who is the head of the Helen McArdle Nursing and Care Research Institute at Sunderland University. God, I didn't think I was going to get it all out. That's some title, that man.
Oh, that's right. Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
It's over the moon you wanted to come on. I know you're really busy and for you to take a half an hour to talk rubbish to me, that's great.
Oh no, anything for VICS.
So hopefully people will realise that VICS now works with the university a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What I wanted to, really, I want to talk a little bit about you first, but then go on to the Time for Tea programme that the university did. You wrote a paper on it, and it sort of partnered the university, VICS and the Glass Centre. So do you want to start a little bit about you first, though, so people know who you are?
Yeah. Just a bit about. Have they not seen Crime Watch?
No. In Sunderland, that's normal viewing, man.
As you said, I'm the head of the Helen McArdle Nursing and Care Research Institute. I've worked at the university for the last 9 years. The Research Institute is set up to undertake applied research. So this is research within health and well-being to sort of benefit Sunderland and the wider community. And how we sort of got involved with VICS, I guess, gosh, I think we met about 3.5 years ago through Anne Fox at Sunderland CCG, where I have a sort of joint research post where I work quite closely with the CCG to develop research. And Anne was telling me about VICS, and you were just starting up and looking at veteran health, and I at the time didn't realize what a large veteran population that we had. And as I sort of understood, being a bit of a foreigner here, about the history of Sunderland and how it's traditionally been a very high recruiting area for the armed forces, and as such, nobody ever leaves Sunderland. They might go away for a while, but they come back. So, we have a large returning veteran population. And just, I guess I really didn't know. And I think what really struck me was that transition when you leave the armed forces back into civilian life. I didn't realize what a difficult journey that could be. And I know the CCG was speaking with you about what we could put in place to support that transition and to support veterans in their family to make that adjustment back into life in Sunderland. So I got involved in looking at ways how we could use research to get evidence to support the commissioning of services and really what to do. And we bid to the Armed Forces Local Grants Covenant Fund for money into looking at a project that would integrate veterans sort of into the wider community. And sort of through engagement work that we did with VICS and the veterans and the university, we came up with the idea of doing an arts and well-being project that would involve the veterans. But that was very much, that was a decision made, with the veterans, by the veterans, for the veterans. So it wasn't the university saying, this is what we're going to do. It was very much a partnership between the veterans and the university, but of course led by VICS.
Yeah, well, we had what we do with anything that we do. We have focus groups, and we ask everyone's advice, basically what they would like to do. Because I've never been a sort of lover of the kind of this is what you're doing, and then everyone's just got gone along with it, because people are not going to enjoy it if it's like that.
No, and I think anything that we do, it has to mean something. And I think it has to make a difference. And say if people don't buy into the idea, it's not going to work. But I think that there's a lot, I suppose, that we didn't understand at the time about veterans. And that's just because, like someone for myself, I've never been in the armed forces. I've never served. So I'm not the best person, but I knew I could see from, the initial engagement work, I knew there was a gap. But, I needed to work with VICS to try and understand what the best way of filling that gap and increasing knowledge about how we could support veterans. So, but like you say, that has to be led by the veterans themselves, because nobody else understands that experience.
It's not, and you've got to be interested in doing something. So the stuff that you did at the Glass Centre was sort of kind of a progression from the art club that we run.
Yes.
Because I'm not interested at all in art, in actually doing art. I like art to look at, and I like to go to museums and things like that, but I'm not in the slightest bit interested in doing it. So when we thought, and we had a sort of focus group and said to people, if we had an art club, would you like to do it? And the uptake, it was unbelievable. I never thought that many people, and specific people who I definitely thought wouldn't like that sort of stuff, were the main ones that wanted to do it. So I've found that to be really creative, the way they have been, the clients, is unbelievable. We've just decorated the front of the ERP.
I know, the poppies, yeah, it's amazing.
They made a sign that was actually going to be for a standard, you know, like a flag what you carry. And that was going to be for Remembrance Day, but obviously the parade's been cancelled, so we decided to get it made into a sign just to brighten up the front, like, and the poppies, and it's been great. They've made
it's absolutely beautiful.
They made a really ghost soldier as well out of like chicken wire. So it's great. Like, we haven't put it out yet, like, because I'm expecting to get nicked, to be quite honest. Like, we'll put it out and then take a picture, and then it'll probably be gone. But I mean, it looks great. You know, it looks great. I'm surprised how sort of into it everyone is.
Yeah, I think one of the things, I know when we started doing the initial engagement work, so we had Alison Clelland from the Glass Centre come and speak to VICS, you know, the groups at the Gunners. And she was saying, when she sort of threw the idea out about art, and the reason she sort of said art, you know, there's no right or wrong way to do it. Like, art is art. It's your interpretation of what you think art is. And she said that, very much like you, she was really surprised at the uptake, because she said initially she wasn't sure, because she said a lot of people said, well, we've never done art, you know, we don't know what it is, we don't know if we're any good at it. And she said, well, you know, you come with you don't have to have any skills, you know, you build it up, and you sort of learn, and you teach yourself, and you do it as you go along. But I think what came out when we evaluated the program afterwards is a lot of people said they'd never actually had an opportunity to do art, to get involved with ceramics, to get involved with glass blowing, and it was just the idea of doing something new that really appealed to them. But I think anything creative, it's a new way of thinking, isn't it? And I think if you're doing something with your hands, you don't need to be talking, because you're busy doing things. And I think for people who, you know, it's a new environment, it's sort of a nice way to break into it, because you don't have to think about talking, selling yourself, making conversations. You're all creating something together, so you sort of form a common bond, and the conversation comes afterwards, if you like, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, because of the uptake of that, we've ended up now with COVID, we've been dropping off art supplies at houses.
Yeah.
And Alison, the artist, has been doing videos, and then they've been looking at them, and then they've been doing their own artwork, like paper cuts for the windows and stuff, mostly around Remembrance Sunday. But it's been crazy, like, to be honest.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the thing, when we started doing it, so, you know, it was run by the Glass Centre. So I did all the research bits. I didn't get to do the fun bits, like go and make ceramics. So, but I guess when you do research, you almost need to take a step back. And, you know, it wasn't about me, it was about the participants, and really giving them a chance to, you know, and a lot of them said that they didn't know how they could feel part of the university. And there's more, you know, the university is a wide community. It isn't just coming and doing a degree at the university, then leaving. You know, there's people, you know, there's jobs at the university, there's spaces at the university, such as the Glass Centre, you know, and you know, the gym, places at the university where you don't have to be a student or a staff member to share and take part in that. So what we really want, you know, we're an inclusive university, we're in the heart of Sunderland, and we want everybody to have a sense of belonging to the university. And I think we're lucky to have something like the National Glass Centre, which again, you know, that many of the veterans and the people and their families who took part said, well, you know, we didn't know, you know, we knew what the Glass Centre was, we knew where it was, but we never thought about going. And actually, but once they went in and they saw it, and the fact they could do something at the Glass Centre and be part of the Glass Centre, they felt a sense of belonging and a sense of ownership with the Glass Centre, which I think with any museum and any university, you know, if that's the feedback you're getting from people, that's the biggest compliment you can get.
But I think you said there, veterans and their families, I think being able to take the families along to do all these things, it was been a massive plus as well.
Absolutely.
You know, it gets everyone involved.
Well, that's what we want, because I think if you look at, you know, when you're looking at veterans and you're talking about veterans settling back after leaving the armed forces, it isn't just about them. For veterans who have families, that experience affects everybody, doesn't it? And I think you know, it isn't just veterans. You know, we always say veterans and their families, because it is, you know, taking VICS, the university, we are a big family, really, aren't we?
We are, and I mean it's worked brilliant, hasn't it? I mean, and it's only and it's only going to get bigger.
It's only going to get bigger. But what we did with the so we evaluated the project, and I think sort of the thing that sort of saddens me is we didn't quite finish it, because what we wanted to do is, when we did all the workshops, we did the glass and we did the ceramics, we had a theme. And again, it was the veterans that drove that. There was a real, they said they had a real sense of that military identity, and they wanted to have sort of a theme that went across all the workshops. So they wanted to make things that represented that military past, that military heritage, because they were really, really proud of it. And so what we did, and we decided that if we sort of in the glass blowing sections, we would make things like napkin rings, we would make glasses, and with the ceramics, we would make plates, we would make bowls, and actually we made mess tins at the end, but they weren't made of metal, they were made of ceramics. But the idea is we would get all the things that we needed to eat and have a celebration from. So the final, after we ran all the workshops, we were going to have a big celebration event at the Glass Center, where, you know, that the artifacts would be on display, but we would actually have a meal together. So the artists, the veterans, their families, people from the university, we would all come together, and the mayor and mayoress were invited as well. So we would all come together as a community and share a meal together and use everything that had been made during the workshops. But unfortunately, we couldn't do the last 4 workshops because of lockdown, and obviously now with the social distancing, we will have the celebration, but unfortunately, you know, for the foreseeable future, we can't have it. But I think, you know, although the veterans are disappointed about that, you know, it will happen. But I think the biggest thing for me, because I interviewed the artists about their experiences, I spoke to the veterans and their families afterwards, but it was that sense of belonging and that feeling of pride. And I think the thing that really, the thing that really stands out for me is when I interviewed one of the veterans, he said it was the first time he'd left the house in 10 years. And he said, I needed a reason to leave the house. And he said, you know, he said Claire from VICS, he said she was quite persuasive and said, you know, you need to be thinking about doing this. And he said, she got me out of the house. And he said, but the first time I came, I went with my family, because he said, I wasn't quite sure what to expect. And it's the comfort of having people, you know, with you when you're trying something new. And that first session, you know, they were all together. It was a ceramic session. They made things. And he said, but you know, he said, I went to all the sessions. And I said, well, how did it make you feel? And he said, well, you know, I wanted to leave the house. I needed a reason to leave the house. And he said, you know, it made me happy. I've got a spring in my step. I've got a sense of purpose. And he said, I'm really proud of what I've made. And, you know, I met people, you know, he said, I met my own, you know, I've got friends now that I didn't have before. But he said, you know, I could be myself. You know, he said, you know, the veterans almost, we have our own little language. And he said, you know, and unless you're a veteran, you don't speak. And we sort of come together because of that shared experience. So we've always got this common bond, you know, and it was just, you know, to me, it was actually quite, I was quite emotional about that, thinking, you know, we've done this, and to make that much of a difference in somebody's life, you know, a positive difference like that, that's why we want to continue with this, because we know works isn't the word, but, you know, it is making people feel better. It's giving them a sense of purpose. And I think now, especially, you know, with, you know, we're going into a second lockdown, you know, we know that there's social isolation and loneliness, you know, which is quite high among the veterans population. And if we can do something where, if we can still do a version of this project and take into account all the regulations that we have to live by, you know, we have to keep doing it. It's making a difference, and the veterans love it.
I think without a doubt, I think, like, if we can explain how kind of big it's got now, other than COVID happening, so
yeah,
we're ending up with a PhD student.
Yep.
So do you want to talk about that?
Yes, yeah, I will. So, well, what happened as this project came? You know, it was sort of 2 years in the making, because I think it's fair to say we did about 4 to 6 months of engagement work with the veterans, because, you know, they almost came out of the woodwork, and it was word of mouth talking about this project. And, you know, like you said before, we have to have buy-in, and it has to be right for them. It has to be something that they want to do, not something we're forcing on them. And, you know, people take time to make up their minds. They need to think about things. And, you know, as these stories, as they were, you know, making things with the ceramic, with the glass blowing, what was coming out is their stories, their shared experience, and that loneliness and that social isolation. We know, you know, we've read research papers to say it's a problem, but it's a different thing to hear it directly from somebody who's actually experienced that. And there was a commonality of experience within Sunderland. And, you know, I know that you've picked that up in the great work that VICS is doing. And I think one of the things, you know, and again, continuing with the arts and well-being theme, but also to look, how do we address this social isolation problem? You know, we need to make people feel belonging. So we sort of almost pulled that as a separate strand of the project and said, what we need to do is we need to research that further. And as it happened, just quite fortuitously, we have, when the Research Institute was set up, the McCardle family have funded a full-time PhD student scholarship once every 3 years. And as this was coming together, we had to propose a topic that had to be approved by the advisory board of the Institute and the university. But it was what research topic, if we have a funded PhD, what does Sunderland need? Where's the gap that we need to address? And I think through conversations, you were very much part of it. We looked at what we could be doing with the veteran population to make a difference. And we looked, if we explored social isolation, just looked at what was going on, what could be done. And we were involved with yourselves in Sunderland Clinical Commissioning Group, which is committed to serving and looking after the veteran population. We came up and we advertised the PhD studentship as exploring social isolation in the veteran population in Sunderland. So it's very much a Sunderland-based project, and we advertised it. We had some brilliant candidates that we interviewed for it, and there was just one that stood out. Sean Dalglish, as you know, was the recipient of the award. She started in October. She is from an armed forces family. She's a nurse. She's taken 3 years out of her career to undertake this PhD, but it's almost a career change for her. She wants to work with veterans. She wants that to sort of be her career. So I think we've got the right person, we've got the right topic, and we've got the right environment. So it's just, and we've got the right people on board. So you're one of the external supervisors on the project. Sean will be working very closely with VICS in terms of collecting the data. So it's very much a real world project that has potential to make a difference to the veterans of Sunderland.
I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I've never met up in person yet.
We don't meet anybody in person. Everything's virtual at the moment.
I know it's
a bit surreal.
We've got to change at some stage. We've got to start meeting people again, man.
Oh no, absolutely. But I think, you know, with anything, it's the safety. You know, we have to, you know, we can't break the rules. We have to account for the social distancing. But as I say, you know, ideally there'd be a lot more face-to-face work. But if we have to adapt the project and do some of this, like speaking with the veterans, if that has to be done by video, well, the very first podcast I did with you, we were face-to-face in the ERV. You know, now we're 30 miles apart talking on Zoom. But the fact is we're still doing it. We're still making the connections, and we're just adapting what we do in the current climate. We should never, ever stop. We just need to adapt and be a bit flexible and move. And as long as we're moving forward, that's the most important thing.
Yeah, there's a saying when you're in the army that's improvise, adapt and overcome. So everything can be changed, you know, to suit what you want to do. So, I mean, do you want to speak a little bit about, because Yitka's not a bit of not an English name that I've ever came across. So do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself? Because I mean, I've knew you now for 3 years, and I don't know everything about you.
All right. Well, it's yeah, right. Well, I'm a bit of a hybrid. So I was actually born in Toronto, Canada. My mother is from the Czech Republic, so I've got the Czech name. So, but Yitka actually it means Judith in English, or Siobhan if you're Irish. So, but it's just it's like being called Harriet, I suppose, in England. It's just a very sort of traditional Czech name. And don't laugh, but you know, my father's from
Didn't
England.
say it, don't laugh, because I'm gonna laugh. I
Because
don't even know what
gonna
you're gonna
laugh.
say.
Well, I'll tell you. No, I'm going to ask you this. So, you know, so my name is Yitka. I've got a brother and a sister. What do you think my brother's called, and what do you think my sister's called?
Oh, I've no idea.
If my name is Yitka, go on, have a go.
I've got out of every name in the world.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. Brian.
Right.
Brian.
Well,
that's your sister.
No. Well, my brother's called Richard, and my sister's called Mary. So there's Yitka, Richard, and Mary. But my dad was from London, so they got the English names, and I got the Czech names.
Yeah, well, it suits you. I've only known you as Yitka, so it suits you. And I've never heard that name before.
It's kind of like being called Cher or Madonna. It's like you don't need a last name, do you? You can just be Yitka.
Everyone knows Yitka.
Exactly. whether that's a good thing or not.
No, of course it's a good thing. Of course it's a good thing. So when did you move to England then?
I came to England. So I've got 3 passports. So I've got an English passport, a Canadian passport, and a Czech passport. And to make a long story short, I was studying Spanish at university. I had an opportunity to go to Spain. And I lived in Spain for 2 years because with a British passport, you can live and work in Spain. And I think not so much going to happen now after Brexit, but we're not going to talk politics.
No.
But I came back to England on my way back to Canada. And that was a really long time ago. And I've now lived in England longer than I've lived in Canada. So, and sort of most of that has been up in the Northeast. And sort of most of my working life, although I don't live in Sunderland, has been, I worked in the pharmaceutical industry for years with, and actually know Gloria very well when she was a practice manager. So Gloria and I go back, God, far too many years, you know, seeing as we're only 27. But I think I've always worked, you know, in health, in the pharmaceutical industry. I had a lot of work with the hospitals, the GP surgery. So sort of Sunderland is sort of my natural environment, if you like. So an honorary Mackem.
You love Sunderland as well, don't you?
I certainly do. Center of the universe.
That's why I like you on the firm, like, because if you were a mag, I wouldn't invite you.
Oh, no. We don't sort of yeah. Well, we're not going to get into a discussion. Yeah, no mags.
No. So what is the big plans coming up? Do you think where can this reach, this partnership?
Yeah. So I think, well, where we're going, because I've always, it's very much, you know, a tripartite relationship. So there's VICS, there's the university, and we've got Anne Fox at the CCG. And it's very much so, it's sort of you on the front line, engaging with the service users. You're the one, you know, you've got your finger to the pulse. You're telling us what's going on and what's happening. We've got ourselves with the university, and really whereas we see research isn't something that people sit in a tower and do. Research gives us evidence to make decisions. And we've got the clinical commissioning group as a commissioner of services, but you know, that's public money. In order to commission services, they need evidence of need, you know, evidence of demand, and they want to know what is needed. So by having this absolutely brilliant relationship that we've got, and I think Time for Tea is a real testament to that working partnership between the 3 of us. We're going to take that forward, obviously, with the PhD students. We've got we've got some bids, you know, to carry on the art project, which if they just hurry up and make a decision about what they're going to do, we'd like a firm yes. But I say the working relationship is about taking this forward. It isn't about just doing one thing and resting on our laurels. You know, things are, and I would say, you know, in the pandemic, it's, what were you saying before? It was improve, adapt, and move on.
Improvise, adapt, and overcome.
Improvise, adapt, and overcome. Okay, so absolutely, I need to remember that. But no, you're very much right. I think, you know, the problems aren't going to go away. And I would say problems, the issues, you know, and I don't see things as problems. I only see things as solutions. And I think it's working together between the 3 organizations, and very much, and there is the 4th, which are the veterans themselves, because I say there's no point any of us doing anything unless we've got the engagement with the veterans, and they need to be telling us what's going on. But that is very much driven by yourselves.
Yeah, it's always client focused.
Absolutely.
Right, I just thank you for taking half an hour out of your busy schedule.
Well, Michael, I've always got time for VICS, and I've always got time for you.
Oh, thanks, man. Cheers. Right, well, if you send over the link, we can put it on the bottom for people to click on to read the report.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we'll put the stuff along. Okay.
And if anybody wants to see I did a lecture about it for the university. It's a great cure for insomnia. But you know, if you want to watch it,
send us the link for that as well, and we'll put that on.
I certainly will. But no, just to say, you know, just thanks so much, and you know, just to say, you know, thank you so much for the support from the veterans. You know, we wouldn't be having this conversation if the veterans didn't believe in us and what we're trying to do. So, you know, it's because of them that we're here having this conversation. So I just want to thank them.
Mutually beneficial as well, because we'd like to thank Sunderland University and the CCG.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, thank you very much, man.
All right, take care. Stay safe.
Man. Bye.